Dear beloved community, it is said that the one who listens is the one who speaks. And so I hope you will give the Dharma talk this morning. Right view, what is the right view? This is a question that was asked to the Buddha and to the Buddha's disciples. We already heard something about right view. We heard about the Noble Eightfold Path. Don't you? Translation okay, huh? The traduction, ça va? Right view, what is right view? And we heard the other day from Brother Phap about right view, Noble Eightfold Path. And we heard from Sister Dinh Nghiem on the first Dharma talk about non-attachment to view, and that is also right view. So I don't know if we can add anything today. When Sariputta was asked this question, you can read about this in the Majjhima Nikaya, number 9, Samaditi Sutta. He gave many good answers because there are different ways of looking at right view, and some way we call mundane, the mundane right view. But mundane is very important. It is how we practice in the world, in our daily life. And then there is the supramundane right view, which is how we touch nirvana. But if we cannot enjoy the mundane, we will never be able to enjoy the supramundane. So please don't discriminate. So when his fellow monks asked Sariputta, what is right view? He replied, right view is the view which is able to understand the wholesome and the unwholesome, as well as the root of the wholesome and the unwholesome. So in ethics, that is what we try to do, to understand what it is that is wholesome and what it is that is unwholesome. And so Sariputta replied in terms of the 5 mindfulness trainings as being wholesome and failure to practice as being unwholesome. But other replies can also speak in terms of the 10 wholesome things and the 10 unwholesome things, which is just really a little bit of the 5, but it includes more the mind action, because we know all our action is based in our body, in our speech, and in our mind. And if we look at the 5 mindfulness trainings in the way traditionally people may have looked at them, we see more it is about the body and the speech. The first 3 about the body action, the 4th about the speech, and the 5th about the body action, consumption. But in the 10 trainings, we see that we have 3 to do with the mind. And these three to do with the mind are the root of the wholesome and the unwholesome. So it's very clear in Buddhism that the root is our mind action. And the unwholesome root is the craving, the hatred, and the ignorance. And the wholesome is when there is no craving, and when there is no hatred, and when there is no delusion. Well, we have quite a lot of delusion, and we may say, well, when there is not 100% delusion, it's not possible, but it means that our perceptions are 70%, 80% the truth. They're near to the truth. They get quite near to the truth, because our perceptions can never be 100%. We are limited by our senses, by our brain and other things. But we can bring our perceptions nearer and nearer to the reality. That is, if you are angry with your mother or your father, then that is because you have a perception that mother and father are something different from me, two realities outside of me. But when you look deeply, you will see that mother and father are right there in you. I remember one time when my father was very angry with me. And it was fortunate that day I managed to follow my breathing. It's not always like that, but that day I follow my breathing. And as I follow my breathing, I saw, oh, my father is angry with himself, because I am my father and my father is me. So I follow my breathing, and I really felt the pain of the anger of my father. And as I breathed and felt the pain of the anger of my father suddenly stopped being angry. So he felt the connection. As I felt the connection in me, he and I are one. He felt the connection. And he looked at me, he said, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for being so beastly. That is the expression we use in England. So at that point we are able to do hugging meditation. So there are causes and conditions that water our anger. And right view, which is the view of interbeing, also. We see how it's connected to our daily life. We see how it's connected to the afflictions and the pain in our daily life. There are two obstacles. They are called the obstacles of the afflictions and the obstacle of the known. And it is wonderful to be free from those obstacles, and it is said to be nirvana. When we have a little bit of freedom from the obstacle of the afflictions, we have a little bit of nirvana. A little bit of freedom from the obstacle of the known, we have a little bit of nirvana. The other day when we listened to the Dharma talk about non-attachment to views, I got a little bit of freedom from the known, and it gave me quite a little bit of nirvana. Nirvana is not something in the future. It is not something when you die. Or if you're lucky, as you're dying, you may get it, I don't know. But if you don't get it now, there's no hope you will get it as you are dying. So when we can let go of the known, that is, let go of the idea that this person is out there, different from me. I am in here, different from that person. When we can let go of that known, we get freedom from the known. So the obstacle from the afflictions and the obstacle of the known are not really disconnected from each other. When you are free of your affliction of craving, hatred and delusion, you also get free from the known. And when you free yourself from the known, you can remove your hatred and so on. So the root of the wholesome action of body, speech and mind is the craving, the hatred and the ignorance. That is traditional Buddhist teaching. But sometimes I ask myself, or we can see that craving, hatred and ignorance are the basis for so many other unwholesome things. Craving has jealousy in it, covetousness in it. Hatred has anger in it, irritation in it, impatience in it. And ignorance has everything, everything unwholesome in it. But sometimes I ask myself, what has happened to fear? Because for me, fear is a big unwholesome thing. And I wonder sometimes why the Buddha did not put in or why, not exactly the Buddha, but because the Buddha did teach about fear and removing fear. But when the ancestral teachers wanted to start making lists of things, and they gave us 51 mental formations, they did not put in fear. They did not put in anxiety. So I don't know why. But I think that Thầy, our teacher, he did add some things to the mental formations, and one of them is fear and anxiety. Those are the unwholesome ones. So we need to look at the root of our fear. And maybe we could put it in the desire category, because everything that we desire is everything we fear not to have. We desire to survive, and we fear not to survive. But still we need to take our fear and anxiety into account as a root of unwholesome things that we do in our daily life, and take good care of our fear. So here we are seeing a little bit of the Buddhist view of ethics. Ethics being what is wholesome and what is unwholesome. So that is the mundane, we call the mundane view of ethics. So this represents the mundane. So we have a good and bad. Huh? Or good and evil. This is mundane. And we need the mundane, we need it. So there's another example about how when we can see ourselves in the other person, we can help. We can help remove the anger. And the Buddha said that someone who is not angry with the other person who is angry with them wins a double victory. A victory for themselves and a victory for the other person. So say you have a mother or father, you have an aunt or uncle, you have a brother or a sister who you want to help. But that person does not seem to want your help. And every time you try to help, you bring them something, although they are not in good health, you know that they will not live much longer, but they cannot accept your love. They cannot accept your gift. They cannot accept your care. And every time you try, they will say some very abusive, unkind things to you. So you ask yourself, why? Where does all that anger and hatred come from? For someone who is not much longer to live, they want to waste the rest of their life in being angry. It must come from ignorance. And if I do not know how to help that person, I feel very bad. And if I am angry with that person, I feel very bad. So I need to practice something called diffusing the bomb. In that person there is a bomb. Why? That bomb comes from the suffering of that person. The fear they have of not being able to live much longer. And the idea they have, no one can help me. And everything they fear, all the thoughts that they have, they cannot express in any other way than in anger. So that is what we call having a bomb inside. And so you need, if you're going to help, you need mindfulness. You need understanding. And you need much compassion. And if you have not been to a retreat where you can learn these things, it will be very difficult for you. Maybe you have a minute compassion, minute understanding, but you do not have the deep enough, long-lasting enough compassion. So you practice on your own. You practice until you see, I understand how much that person is suffering. And I'm going to do something to help. And so when you feel you're ready, when you feel you have enough compassion which has oozed up in your heart and the drops of compassion are there, you will think, I am ready. And next time when I come to my loved one who is so angry, I will be able to breathe and I will be able to say, I know I've made you suffer. I know when I come to see you, I make you suffer. Please help me by letting me know about what I do that makes you suffer so much. I want to know because I want to be able to listen to you, to be able to understand you and offer my best to you. And if our compassion is enough, then it radiates from our face, from our eyes, and the person will be able to cry. They will be able to see they really have so much suffering, and now there is someone there who is ready to sit and listen to them, to be Avalokiteshvara. But diffusing the bomb, we have to really see that the other person and we are not two separate self-entities. As long as we see we are separate, it's not possible. Therefore, we need to practice, to look deeply before we begin to try to diffuse the bomb. If we do it too early, we will get a bomb inside of us as well. So that is how the the mundane, the distinction between good and evil is very necessary. We know that anger is destructive to ourselves and to others. And then we have a line here which is called anuloma. Anuloma, it is the smooth way into the supramundane. And this is interbeing. It is the ability to see that the bad is in the good and the good is in the bad. And then we come to the supramundane we talk about later. So it's not only Shariputra who is asked what is right view, the Buddha was also asked what is right view. One of his disciples, who was said to be the foremost disciple in explaining the Buddha's teachings, So in order to be able to explain the Buddha's teachings, you need to really understand them. He's called Katyayana. Katyayana. And he came to the Buddha one day and asked this question: what is right view? And the Buddha gave a different answer from Shariputra. The Buddha said, people in the world are, for the most part, caught in a duality. They are caught in the duality of being and non-being. And because they are caught in, and when they are not caught in this duality, they understand. When the world arises, or when any of the formations in the world, formations, samskara, you know that word? Samskara. It means composite, things that are made up of other things. We have our body is a physical formation, kaya samskara, and our thoughts are mental formation. Maybe our body is physiological formation. These daisies are a physical formation. They are made up of everything that is not them. And that is a formation. So so someone who understands right view understands that when the world arises, or anything in the world arises, that it is not, not non-being. Yeah. So when you see the baby that is born, that is just born, then you don't think, oh, this baby is non-being. That means you don't think that this baby comes from non-being. Before this baby was born, it did not exist. Because you know very well that before this baby was born, his mother was there, father was there, food of which the mother ate, air which the mother breathed. You know, those things are also there. So how can the baby come from non-being? And when this baby will grow and become an old man or an old woman and die, then if you think the baby came from non-being, you will think now this old man has gone into non-being. So the idea of being and non-being are things that make us suffer. They are the root of our ignorance, the view of being and non-being. And when the world ceases, it does not think that the world does not exist. Because we have understood manifestation. We have understood that when the causes and conditions are right, the baby manifests. And then continues to manifest in wonderful ways. Every day you continue, every minute you continue to manifest in a different way. So when you lie down, when your coffin is closed, we are not caught in the idea that you do not exist. And that before you were born, we're not caught in that idea. And when that person has that kind of insight of no being and no non-being, that person also has the insight that when suffering arises, it's simply suffering arising. When suffering ceases, it's simply suffering ceasing. What does this mean? It's difficult to understand. Of course, when suffering arises, it arises. But what the Buddha wants to say is that there is suffering, but there is no one who suffers. There is happiness, but there is no one who is happy. And this is the teaching of Nonself, which is linked to the teaching, the right view of no being and no non-being. There is not the existence of a self, a separate self, who experiences happiness and suffering. You think, oh, tomorrow I will go to the dentist, I will suffer when the dentist does something to me. But the person who thinks that today and the person who goes to the dentist tomorrow are not the same person. You have lost many cells of your body. New cells have been born. And your thinking, your feeling, everything is not the same. So the idea of being and non-being is linked to two other ideas. What is it? Attita. And nattita is the being and non-being in Pali. So, being. So being is linked to permanence, the idea of permanence. Non-being is linked to the idea of annihilation. So we have permanent, and this is how we normally look at ourselves. We look at ourselves as something permanent. I was like that yesterday, and the same I, is different today. But where is that I? We do not know. So this is the idea of being and permanence. And non-being means yesterday he was there, today his cremated is no longer there. He's completely annihilated. So these ideas make us suffer a lot. So in the 12 Nidana, we are always taught by the Buddha, maybe ignorance conditions formations, or ignorance is conditioned by formations are conditioned by consciousness is conditioned by the psyche soma, and you know these 12 things. And then one of them is being is conditioned by craving, grasping. Yeah, being is conditioned by grasping. It's very interesting. if you compare with this sutra, because we grasp with our mind to the idea of being. But the thing is that in this sutra, the Buddha teaches what Thay has always tried to remind us, is that as soon as you have the idea of being, you have the idea of non-being. So grasping does not just condition being, it also conditions non-being, the idea of non-being. So these are what the Buddha is teaching in the Kaccayana Gota Sutta, SN 12:15. I think you have that sutta in the chanting book, Discourse on the Middle Way. But the one in the chanting book is from the Chinese version. And the Chinese version doesn't tell you something quite interesting. The Pali version doesn't tell you something quite interesting. And the interesting thing is that during that Dhamma talk given by the Buddha, the Venerable Kaccayana became enlightened. He turned into an arahant. So just by listening to this teaching is a very important part of our practice. So what else did the Buddha say in this? He said that the Buddha does not teach being and does not teach non-being. The Buddha teaches the middle way. This is the middle way. You have being here, one extreme. Being is one extreme. Non-being is another extreme. And there is a middle way. And the middle way, we are lucky we have a word we can describe with. One is conditioned co-arising, and the other word we can use is interbeing. The middle way. So we better listen to the sound of the bell. If you can remind me to have a sound of the bell. Look at your watch and then every 15 minutes remind me. You know the poem of Thaya, I am you and you are me. Isn't it wonderful that we inter-are? You can water the, you can water the beauty in me, I can water the beauty in you. We take care of each other's seeds. That poem, I did not bring it with me, I'm sorry. Well, the other day when we were listening to, I think we were listening to the panel sharing, and I suddenly thought of one ethical tendency. It's called ethical egoism. is the opposite of ethical altruism. So the philosopher who is said to have thought up this philosophy, ethical egoism, actually probably was there a long time before he thought it up, but was replying a little bit to utilitarianism, which was also a philosophy about that time. Utilitarianism, where the greatest, where the basic thing is a little bit like in Buddhism, that what can lead to happiness, what can reduce suffering is what we can call good. And what contributes to suffering and makes more suffering is what we call bad. So the greatest happiness of the greatest number. So reaction to this was, it's enough if I just take care of my own happiness, my own well-being. And when we hear ethical egoism, we may think, that sounds very strange. How can it be ethical and egotistical at the same time? But if we look deeply, and we see that the nature of interbeing, the nature of I am you and you are me, the nature of the non-separateness of each person, we can see it has some sense. Because if I really take care of my mental formations, if I reduce my anger, my fear, and so on, then you will benefit. I think we need a bit of everything, a bit of ethical egoism, a bit of ethical altruism, helping others. But when we hear terms like ethical egoism, it gives us a little bit of maybe of permission to take good care of our mental formations and not to be thinking how to take care of other people's mental formations. We have the right always to come back to the island of ourself, to take care of ourselves, so that we can be fresh and beautiful for the other person. Now if we go back to the 4th century or 3rd century of Chinese philosophy, and we look at so please, last time Sister Nghiem asked for Chinese pronunciation. I'm doing the same. I didn't hear. Who's the other one? Huh? Mencius, có phải không? I don't know, something like that. In English, we call this person Mencius, and this person, I don't know what we call in English. So now we're looking a little bit at what is what is the root of ethical principles. And as far as Mencius is concerned, everyone is born is innately good. So that is very encouraging. Huh? And according to Sun Tzu, everyone is born bad. If you look at a baby, every time not get what the baby wants, it'll cry and so it's very selfish. So when we ask, now you know the correct pronunciation, I'm not going to try anymore. When we ask Mencius, what is the reason why you think that, what do you base that on? That everyone is born good. What do they have that manifests they are good? What does all human beings have in common that is good? And the first thing is trắc ảnh. I don't know what that is in Chinese. Huh? You know what it is, huh? The first thing is when you feel pain, when you see other people suffer. For instance, you are sitting enjoying your cup of tea, and then you look at the well, and you see there's a child running toward the well. You get climbing on the edge of the well. Of course, you will put down your tea and run straight away to pull the child back. Well, everybody will do that. And they don't do it for any reason because they want to be praised by the parents of the child. They do that quite naturally. So that is the first thing that proves that we are good. The other thing that we have is duo, that is, we have a sense of shame. Huh? We know when we do something bad, and we know when we do something good. And we feel ashamed when we do something bad. We all have that. It's said that even people who rob banks, they feel ashamed. But they say to themselves, oh, well, I only rob a bank because I never have enough like other people have, and so I deserve to have more, and that is why I rob a bank. And then the third thing is từ nhường, nhường nhịn. The third thing is to be able to yield. So if you say, oh, please go first. Please take my place. It is a kind of humility, the capacity to yield and yet let someone else go before you. But I think it's not always like that. Sometimes we yield very easily, and other time we don't. But according to Mencius, that is something. And the last one is thị phi, right and wrong. That human beings all know what is right and what is wrong. When the baby is born, I have to tell you a story about when I was a baby, which maybe prove that this is not right. So I had a very old cot, which I had my cousin had it before me, and it had some inner lining. And behind the lining there was some kind of padding, cotton or something. And there were little holes in the lining, and I would put my fingers in and pull out the padding. And every time my mother came and saw me doing this, she would say, naughty Annabelle. So I thought, oh, then pulling out the padding means naughty. Huh? So every time I start to pull out the padding, I say, "Naughty Annabelle, naughty Annabelle." And then my mother came and said, but I had no idea that I was doing something wrong. Yeah. So maybe we don't have the idea of right and wrong when we are just born. So those are the 4 things. Yeah, and here we just, when we're baby, we just cry when we want something, and selfish, greedy. So of course we may ask, then in Buddhism, when we are born, do we have good or are we bad? Is the human nature innately good or innately bad? And of course the answer is vô kỷ, indeterminate. And maybe the meta-ethics of Buddhism is something to do with the Buddhist psychology. The basis of Buddhist ethics in Buddhist psychology. So we all have seen the diagram of the different levels of our consciousness, and with the store consciousness. And we know that the store consciousness contains all the seeds. And that when the seeds are lying in store consciousness as potentials that can rise up in mind consciousness, we cannot call them good or bad. We can only call them good or bad when they operate in the mind consciousness, when they sprout and operate. If somebody give you a handful of seeds, you probably will not know whether they are weeds or whether they are mustard green or whatever, because they have not manifested. And so very important part of the understanding of ethics in Buddhism has to do with right diligence and how we take care of the seeds. And not only how we take care of our own seeds, but how we take care of other people's seeds. And in order to be able to take care of our own and others' seeds, we need to be able to share with each other. When you do that, it waters certain seed in me. Please be careful. And please tell me what I do to water the things you don't want to have watered. So that is recognition of the tendencies, the habit energies you have. If you were living in a cave, practicing in a cave, and no one was there to water your unwholesome seeds, you may think, oh, I am really enlightened, because no one there to water. But the other day we were reciting the 14 mindfulness trainings, and we came to the 6th training about anger, and the question was asked, have you studied, practiced and observed this training in the past 2 weeks? And I thought, I'm doing quite well, not just in the past 2 weeks, but maybe 6 months, even 1 year, I didn't get angry. So I felt quite although we're not supposed to give an answer, we can say something like, yes, quite well, or no, not so well. But maybe that is because no one watered that seed. Because after breakfast that day, I saw a message on my email. So I already talked to that sister and told that sister what I wanted to do. And she said, yes, I understand, I support you. So why now she write me an email and say she doesn't support me, she wants me to do what I don't want to do? I was not happy, but I thought, never mind, I will breathe. Huh? So far, so good. Huh? But then I opened my telephone, and then I see a similar message from another sister on my telephone. So, not so good, huh? And then somebody said, one sister is trying to get in touch with you. She wants to talk to you. So I thought, I know what that is about. And I was a little beyond breathing. That is not, I am not advising you like that. But this can happen. And so this other sister started talking, but she didn't get much chance to say very much before I express my anger. So that is to say that I must be careful about thinking that I'm doing well with the sixth mindfulness training. You never know when the causes and conditions are right. But it also tells me next time when something like this happens, do better. Huh? Yeah. So that is, I say this publicly because my sisters are here, and if I don't do better, they will know that I'm not doing better. I would like to share one more sutta with you, because to me it's very beautiful, and I know that in the West it's very much appreciated, and is sometimes called the Charter for Free Enquiry. But I think it's related to the question of right view. This sutta is called Kesaputiya, I think, or it also called Kālāma. Kālāma is a tribe of people. And I prefer the Pali version to the Chinese version. It's not always like that. The discourse on the middle way, I prefer the Chinese version to the Pali version. But we're very lucky, huh? We have the Chinese canon, we have the Pali canon, and we can compare them. In the past, that was not possible. And we can learn a lot from that, how the Buddha got misrepresented sometimes. In theory, they should be exactly the same if the Buddha's not being misrepresented. But they're not, they enrich each other. So this group of Kālāma, young men, they come to the Buddha. They say a good report has gone out about the Buddha, who's have the full awakening. So we must go and see him. It is always good to go and be in the audience of awakened beings. That is true. Huh? So they go, when the Buddha comes, they go and they ask a question. The Buddha always very open to questions. And they said, many spiritual teachers come here, and they all have their own theories. And they tell us, one teacher tells us this is the best theory, you have to follow it. Everybody else's theory is wrong. And then another teacher comes, says the same thing. My theory is the best. All the other teachers are wrong. So we are very confused, very perplexed. We don't know what to think. Which teacher should we follow? We don't know. And the Buddha said, you're quite right to be perplexed. This is a very confusing thing. When you know for yourself that something is wholesome, brings happiness to yourself and others, then practice that teaching. And when you know for yourself that something is unwholesome, it brings suffering to yourself and others, then don't practice that teaching. Even if it has been handed down in the Vedas, even if everyone say that this is good, this is right, even if it is in the scriptures, even if when you reason logically it seems to be logical, even if the speaker is very charismatic and very convincing, even if that person is your guru, do not believe what they say until you have seen for yourself by your own experience that this is wholesome. This is good for me and good for the world. And in that teaching, what is very interesting also is that because in India at that time there were different theories about karma and retribution. You do something good, you receive a good fruit. You do something bad, no merit, you will suffer. So that is teaching of the... And we all think, well, the Buddha teaches that. The Buddha teaches you do something good, you will go to the 33rd heaven when you die. But that is not the deepest level of the Buddha's teaching. And in this sutra, the Buddha said, it's not, you can be assured, when you practice the meditation on loving kindness, when you can send the loving kindness to yourself and to those around you and further away, and there is no enmity in your heart, at that time you will feel happy and you will not be doing harm to anyone else. That is something you can be sure of. And whether when you die you will go to the 33rd heaven or you go down to somewhere else, that is not something that we know. But if there is a 33rd heaven, then you can think, oh, well, maybe I will go there. But actually, if you think about the present and about the future, and in the present you're practicing loving kindness, you feel no enmity towards anyone, then you know that in the future you will also be able to practice that. So that is the freedom that the Buddha had from views. And sometimes the ancestral teachers would say to their students, oh, in the 45 years of the Buddha's ministry, he never taught anything. The meaning of that is that don't be caught, even in Buddhist teachings. So now we have to come back, complete this. The mud is in the lotus is in the mud. This is the and the lotus is in the mud. Okay. And here we have this is really the meta-ethics of Buddhism. But you need to go up and down this thing. So from no good, no evil, you need to go through mud is in lotus and then back to good and evil. So this is something we need, this level here, in our practice of ethics. We need all of this. So in some kinds of ethics, like deontological ethics, you don't really have a basis down here. You just have, this is good and this is evil. Look, it's wrong to kill. You can never kill. So not killing is good and killing is evil, but there is no basis. So this can cause suffering. Thầy in his talks told about in the 1930s or sometime then, when they just discovered radioactivity. There was a man who was working with the radioactivity, and he got very serious. They didn't know about the dangers of that, and he was radiation sickness very badly, and he was in terrible pain. And the doctors said he had another 3 months to live, but he could not bear the thought of having to live for that 3 months, and so he had 3 brothers, 2 elder brothers, 1 younger brother, and he asked his brothers sincerely, please do everything you can to put an end to my life as soon as possible. And so the 2 elder brothers were determined they were not going to kill their brother. And the younger brother brought his, his rifle or whatever into the hospital and shot his brother. And then, of course, he had to be arrested, but the court gave him a very lenient sentence because they felt that this was out of compassion. So sometimes we need to go back to no right and no wrong in order to be able to look deeply into a matter. And here we see that although normally that to kill is something we would never want to do, it's not something ethical. Sometimes the suffering is so much that there needs to be some way. And so this is an important matter in our own time about euthanasia, which is an important ethical matter in our time we need to look at. And luckily now we have something, what do you call, directive anticipé. Huh? So before you die, you can write down what you want and what you don't want, so you don't have to be kept alive for for a long time, when your life is too painful. Yeah. So in our evening chant, we chant, there is no thought of right and wrong. And all the thoughts of right and wrong, which we've been having maybe all day long, we have the chance to drop them completely and to free ourselves, from the known. And then after the sitting meditation, we also go back. And during the sitting meditation, we can also meditate on the interbeing of right and wrong and the mud in the lotus. That is a good meditation to do. And then in our daily life, along with our sangha, we can decide on our action to reduce suffering. And the 14 mindfulness trainings are our teacher, guiding us. But sometimes we find things in the 14 mindfulness trainings and the Sangha doesn't know exactly how to apply them. For instance, we want to take a clear stand against oppression and injustice. Well, that is something quite obvious we all want to do in the Sangha. But half the Sangha want to do one way, another half the Sangha want to do something else. So that is a time when we have to practice the harmony of views, which is also mentioned in the 8th mindfulness training, which means to listen deeply to everyone's view, everyone's concern, and then to try and support each other in the best way we can. So maybe we can do both things, but the main actors will be certain people in the Sangha, and we give them our spiritual support, although we will not go along with them, and the other ones will be given their spiritual support. But there must be a way that we can have harmony by listening deeply to the needs. And very often in a meeting, when there are many different views, we sometimes don't need to come to a decision. Because once we have listened to all the views, and all the views have gone into our store consciousness, then in a week or two, the answer from the collective store consciousness will reveal itself. So don't be in too much of a hurry. With harmony of views and harmony of ideas, harmony of thinking, the most important thing is to listen deeply to each other and allow the decision to come naturally out of the deep listening and the ability to see that I am you and you are me. Yeah, I think we can end here. Thank you.